Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition, post-Easter edition. Happy Monday to you. Hopefully everybody had a good holiday. We're going to break down this 2-game main slate over at DraftKings. Not quite the same as a 4-gamer, but is still fun and money can be won here. Our hope, obviously, is to do that. If we do help in any way, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And you can also access everything that we have to offer if you hit up our Patreon linked in below this video. Just $5.99 for the month for our NBA picks. Our MLB picks and everything else we have to offer. Had some good plays for UFL even. How about that? And Taylor has some plays up, stacks and pitcher picks for the MLB slate today. No video for MLB, so if you want to get that, you have to go in and access our Patreon. All right, let's get to it. Starting over at the point guard position. Up top, James Harden with a 52 fantasy point projection. Right behind him is Cade Cunningham. I think they both look really good. Don't love the ownership that Cade's getting, but right now I am very much on Cade. This guy was like 10K plus all year long, and we get him at a major discount in a very, very big game too with the Pistons down 1-0. How are you feeling about these two guys?
Yeah, I love them both. I prefer Harden between the two, just not a huge price discrepancy. I think Harden generally is the more trustworthy play overall. Denver's defense is kind of slumped this season. They were bottom 10 in defensive rating. So good spot for the Clippers all around. Like, Cade is underpriced relative to what we were paying for the whole season. Essentially, he was over 10K for the most part. So 9,100 is a pretty steep discount. I imagine he'll be like extreme chalk as a result, but it kind of reminds me of the Trae Young thing from, I think, Friday when he was like 8,800. Just too cheap. Playing them both together is doable on this slate if you don't want to play Jokic at the top. So totally fine with that. I think both are awesome plays, and I'll have a lot of both.
Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, you're not getting like a major ownership gap in your favor. Like Harden is kind of chalky still on 2-game slate, probably gonna be pushing 40% and single entry much more than that. Cade just feels too cheap. I really like Cade here, but if you have to pick between the two and you want to go Harden, I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. And he just naturally is going to be a little bit less owned. So they both look good. Jalen Brunson also really cheap, coming off a big 34-point real point game in game 1. I just tend to, like, when it comes to playoff DFS, I do tend to kind of like, if a team played really well or really poorly in the first game, it tends to balance out pretty quickly just because desperation or what have you. Like, if a team shoots the lights out, the odds are just not in their favor to do that again in the second game. So I wouldn't be that surprised at all if Cade came out and had a huge game and Brunson kind of got silenced a little bit. That said, Brunson is only 8.3K, so Brunson does look pretty appealing here. I do prefer Cade and Harden, but what are your thoughts on Brunson?
Yeah, I think Brunson's like fourth for me among the high-end point guards. I would put Murray in front of him also on the other side of that Clipper game. So like Brunson is underpriced also, but like honestly, where everyone's underpriced, it's really not that big of a deal.
Right.
So I think he's a fine play. I don't have any issue with it. I'm just getting to other Knicks more than I'm getting to Brunson right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Everybody is cheap. Even Jokic at 11.5 is cheap for who he is. So like you're saving money across the board. And like you look at the difference between somebody like Brunson and Cade, for instance, $800 difference, but that's a 10-point projection difference too. And the ceiling is way different. Like Brunson can certainly get there, but Brunson like actually has to score a ton of points to usually get there, whereas Cade does a lot more things out there usually. So I think we're on the same page there. Yeah, Jamal Murray definitely is the better play in a vacuum here against Brunson, only 7.5K, very similar projection. I think the only real thing to drive favor towards Brunson would be the fact that out of those 4 guys we talked about, he is the least owned by quite a bit. And then Jamal Murray's behind him too. So, Jamal Murray's a little bit more owned than he is. But so if you want to just get contrarian and get value right away, I think Brunson's a fine play in tournaments, but I just think I agree. I would rather go for the 2 expensive guys first, and I'd play Jamal over him as well. There is a little bit of value here. It's not a lot of great value on the slate as a whole. Russ was very good in game 1. 5.8 feels a little bit steep, but relative to the slate, it's not that bad. You have Schroeder at 4 and Chris Dunn at 3.8. I think Dunn and Schroeder are kind of interesting, and my lean right now is Dunn. They just all have remarkably low floors.
Yeah, I think Schroeder is the best of that group. Just cheap, played 26 minutes off the bench in game 1. Good per minute guy also, which is not true of Chris Dunn. So like Dunn will probably play more minutes because he's going to be out there guarding Murray and all that, but just a super low floor for him. Looks like Schroeder's the chalkier of the two, but I really don't see an issue with that. I just think the ceiling is worth chasing on him. Same with Russ. Like, you can argue that 5'8" is cheap. Like, he was over 6K much of the season. He was over 7K at one point, like when Murray was injured and he was starting and playing a big role. I think he played over MPJ essentially down the stretch that game the other night. So
As he should.
if he's playing well, they'll get him minutes. But like Russ on a game-to-game basis is like so volatile that it kind of feels like a chase. And if he's going to be owned, it doesn't look like he's going to be like
he's not going to be owned at all right now, which seems kind of weird.
I'm interested in him.
Yeah,
I'll keep tabs on the ownership. I think he's a fine play in the mid-range, but point guard is so strong at the top that the cheaper ones kind of fall by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find savings somewhere. I just think that's why I am a little bit interested in Chris Dunn. We know he's going to play for his defensive ability, and if he can do other stuff when he's out there, that's just a bonus. Like, Denver is a good matchup, so 3.8K for him, I think that's fine. I'm with you. Like, Schroeder is just the better offensive player, so he just possesses a better ceiling and probably a better floor. But it's also Schroeder. He like tends to bottom out when you least expect it, or just when he's like, chalky. So I think Schroeder's fine, and certainly you can pair them together, but I do like that Dunn is coming at lower ownership. Russ is just not a guy I'm going to force into my lineups, but if I fall on him at 5'8", I'm okay with it for sure, because I like the minutes he saw in the first game. So the other guys here are McBride, Payne, and Pickett. Pickett is a no-go for me. Probably Payne also. I think it's just like, who's going to get the minutes behind the Knicks starters? It looks like McBride, but I think Payne got 15 in game one. Is that right?
Like, outplayed McBride pretty bad the other day. That's another thing. Like, that's one game. I'm not going to go on a one game sample. So I think McBride is the better play, but like, they're both projecting for so few minutes that they're not really viable on this slate.
No, I agree. I prefer Chris Dunn over them. You can use them. I don't think I would do Pickett. You can use Payne or McBride if you want to do that. I just personally don't. Over at shooting guard, Jamal Murray leads the way. He's the obvious shooting guard play here. You can make a case for Mikal Bridges because he's like $2,000 cheaper, and he's obviously going to get a ton of minutes there. But Jamal Murray just feels like one of the best plays of the slate. Not quite a core play for me, just because, like you said, like everybody's a bit cheap, so it's hard to really prioritize. You got to just go with the guys that are like just mine them in the obvious plays. But Christian Brown also going to get minutes. I like him at 5.1, just a minutes play, just in the name of those Knicks guys. But this is a bad position. How are you feeling up top at shooting guard?
I don't think it's terrible. I think there are kind of a lot of plays that look pretty good. You mentioned Murray. You mentioned Christian Brown, guard forward eligible, 5,100. Like, too cheap at 5.1. I think Mikal Bridges, he was awful in game one, but minutes are going to be there for him and these other guys every single night. 5,700, also an underpay. I mean, I guess everyone's an underpay, so it's not really worth continuing to say that. But I think it's a good value on him. Decent buy low spot. Norm Powell, 5,500, like the cheapest he's been all season probably. He was like 7K-ish during the regular season. Kind of squeezed from a usage standpoint with Harden and Kawhi and Zoo kind of getting most of it. But I don't mind buying low on Norm Powell if no one's going to play him. He's coming in around like, let's see, 13% ownership. So like, that's really low on a guy who's severely discounted. He's been in horrible form for a while, but I don't think that's a bad thing to take a shot on. And then the Pistons, Beasley, Schroeder, and Hardaway. Like, Beasley has the highest ceiling in the group, but he's also the most expensive. I think I prefer Brown to Beasley in that range, but there's kind of a lot in the sub 6K range at shooting guard that looks pretty good.
No, I love Norm Powell. I was very close to putting him into my core today. Just the reality is he is very scoring dependent. So like, he's a volatile player. And like you said, the usage has gone to the other guys. But hey, in 5 meetings with Denver on the year, he's averaged 24.6 real points. This is a matchup he can certainly thrive in. So if he's going to have to do it on less usage, obviously. But if he can get going and be hot, he's going to pay off that salary pretty quickly. And we know he's going to play a ton of minutes anyway. So I like him a lot, like the small forward eligibility as well. I will just double down, though. This position, it is only 2 games, but it's not good because only one guy tops even 30 fantasy points in terms of projection. So you're definitely dealing with a lot of landmines here, a lot of potential guys that can completely derail you. But the nice thing is, after Jamal Murray, they're not very expensive. So you're just like, it's like Scottie Pippen and Kevin Huerter season all over again of the last couple slates we had to deal with. So you just got to pick like the guys who feel like maybe the least volatile. Like to me, Norm Powell at 5.5, Christian Brown at 5.1. Those two guys stand out the most because I know they're going to get minutes, and I know that Norm has a ceiling when it comes to scoring. So I like them. And then you go down here like Tim Hardaway Jr. Don't really want to do that. Like he scored 19 points in game one. Yeah, it feels chasey. He's still in play. It's only 2 games. He can certainly get there. A little bit revenge narrative too, I guess, but not something I really want to do. I think I'd rather play Chris Dunn, which feels bad, especially since he's very chalky compared to him. But I also like that Tim Hardaway Jr. can play at small forward. All right, so over at small forward, we have OG leading the way with 36-point fancy projection. Josh Hart right behind him. I think when you factor in ownership, I'd be a little bit more interested in Hart, but OG has been the much better player. There's no getting around that. Mikal Bridges still there. Some of the guys we already talked about. And you have Michael Porter Jr., who was not good in game one, and Jokic even called him out, apparently. So that's interesting to note. Azur Thompson did not really play that much, 23 minutes in game one. So that's also a little bit troubling. But in theory, he's an interesting value at 4.5 because we know he's a good per minute guy. Who else stands out for you at small forward?
I do prefer OG to Hart. They're like the same price these days. Hart is severely discounted also, but I think Anunoby's scoring upside kind of gives him the edge there, and the matchup is pretty good for him. So I prefer OG, but I think both are strong plays. I agree on Thompson being a decent play. Good per minute guy, but the floor is low based on the minutes. Like they have a fairly deep wing rotation, a bunch of forwards they can kind of interchangeably throw out there. So I have a lot of Asar as of now. Doesn't feel amazing, but he is cheap. And then speaking of not feeling amazing about something cheap, Derek Jones is 3,200. 24 minutes off the bench in game one. Not going to get a lot of usage. Not a fun guy to play, but he's basically min salary. And there's not a lot of like super cheap punt value. It's like him and Batum, who are kind of the same play. I'm getting a lot of both of them as of now. I prefer not to get them together. I think that's a bit too steep, too much to pay down for in terms of like projection cost. But one or the other, I think, is okay.
I hate it. He's really, really chalky. Obviously, it's a 2-game slate. And if you want to find value, 24 minutes in game one, I hear you. I'm going to get to him a little bit too. I'm probably going to go under though, because 50+% of DJJ feels horrible. Don't really want to do that. And I also would not pair him and Batum either. I just think like naturally, if a lot of the builds are going to be going towards Batum and Derek Jones Jr., I would just naturally think, okay, maybe I'll just go up a level here in price and not go with this guy who's probably going to get me 10 fantasy points, So that's just something I'm going to consider as I'm doing my builds, and 50+% is just egregious. Not so great position. So I think I'd kind of hover in the 5K range personally here if I can help it. I guess it all depends on if you want to go get Jokic or not. At power forward, Kawhi does look pretty good here. 44-point fantasy projection, not super owned because he's Kawhi and forever in no man's land. Like he's not up there with Harden and Cade or Jokic, but he's obviously safer than somebody like Josh Hart. I think he's just a rock solid play, and at this ownership, he's pretty darn interesting to close out the night. OG is there. We already talked about him and Hart. Tobias is going to get the minutes and the usage. He's actually a pretty decent play at 6.2. And then Aaron Gordon is one of my favorite plays of the slate at 5.9, getting monster minutes. He was questionable or is questionable. So keep an eye on that, I guess. Don't really expect him to miss. And certainly just, the ebbs and flows of playoff basketball. He was really good in game one, certainly could come back down to earth in game two, but the price for the minutes and his explosive nature is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, I think Tobias and Gordon are like the same play. I don't really have a strong lean for one or the other. Both have pretty low floors. Both have been wildly inconsistent over the years, but I think both look good, and I don't have any issue with playing them together. If you want like a more balanced look, I think that's totally fine. Really no one else to add besides Kawhi and Batum. If Batum is like half as owned as Derek, I think that pivots a lot of sense. He's 100 the same minutes in game one. Neither is going to do a lot while they're out there, but I think it's okay. Like Jones seems like really shaky talk if he's that owned. So Batum as a pivot, I think, is okay. Kawhi is going to be a lot lower owned than Harden, it looks like, just because I guess, the projections, he was disappointing in game one. But if you want to like play Cade and Murray and then play Kawhi instead of Harden or something like that, I think that's a pretty interesting way to build.
Big time agree. I think also it's a good point about the whole Tobias versus Gordon thing. They're both pulling 40+% ownership. So it's not really a spot where you're going to gain any leverage. So just play whichever one you like more, or definitely play them together because they're just really nice, safe-ish mid-range plays for this slate for sure. And then I totally agree on the DJJ versus Batum thing. Like, are either of them reliable? No. Play the guy who's not going to be nearly his own. So I'm definitely going Batum if I'm going to go there. Like I said, my preference, especially if I'm not playing Jokic, is to just stay away from both of them because they both are capable of getting you 10 to 15 fantasy points. But I mean, they also both lack a ceiling, so I'll just take the guy at half ownership, and that right now is Batum. At center, of course, we do have Jokic. Compare, for the slate monster projection, he's discounted compared to where he was all year. He was pushing 13K. I think he was 13K for a little bit there. So definitely way too cheap. The only problem is, DraftKings knows that it's not comfortable to get to Jokic right now. Like, I've done some Jokic builds today and they don't feel great because you're looking at, 2-3 dives that you normally would never play together. And then the rest of your lineup just isn't really where you want it to be. But Jokic is great. If you want to get to Jokic at 10% ownership, I don't know if I buy that, but if that's actually true, I certainly would. If I'm rolling a lot of lineups out, I would definitely go overweight. And then, of course, Cat looks great. Zoo looks great. And I love Duren here. The projection's not amazing for Duren, and the matchup is also not amazing. But 6.1 for Jalen Duren is way too cheap.
Yeah, I played a lot of him the other day, and it didn't go well at all. I think he had foul trouble and stuff, so that was really annoying.
Well,
but
classic.
He's cheap. Yeah. I mean, that's always a risk, especially when you're facing like a high usage center like Towns on the other side. But he is underpriced. I think both centers in this game are good and also underpriced, obviously, just like everyone on the slate.
Right.
Towns at 9.3. Like, I'm getting a lot more of Towns than I am Jokic. Certainly just a price thing. Like, the mid-range is stacked on this slate. And the value, like the cheap value, we're talking about Derek Jones and Nick Batum. Like, that is not comfortable stuff. So if you want to just forego that and do a more balanced build with Towns or Harden or Cade or whoever, I think that's going to be the more popular approach, but I also think it might be the right one. I'm pretty severely not under like the projected ownership because it's already kind of low, but as of now, I'm really not getting a lot of Jokic. It's not a great matchup with Zubats. I know it's Jokic. He can nuke anybody. He probably will, but I'm just willing to bite the bullet and hope he doesn't get 90 fantasy points. And the position is pretty strong otherwise. Like, I love Zubats again, just like the other day. Looks like an awesome play. Towns, Duren, talked about Isaiah Stewart. Like, you can always play the backup game with Stewart. Like, if Duren gets into foul trouble again, then Stewart has a path to more minutes. So he's cheap. He's questionable, but he's cheap. So if he's in, I'm okay with it. If he's out, I guess we can talk about Paul Reed. And then Mitchell Robinson. I think for 3.9, you don't need him to like light the world on fire to get there from a salary standpoint. So I don't mind that either.
No, Mitchell Robinson's really interesting. Like, you just never know with Tibbs. Like, he could just completely burn you there. But like, it just like, he doesn't play and Precious gets all those backup minutes or something. You don't know. But in theory, really good permanent guy, 3.9 kind of feels like a better play compared to DJJ and Batum, right? So like, he certainly could be. Same thing with Paul Reed if Isaiah Stewart's out. Same thing with Isaiah Stewart if he's in. So those guys definitely need to be in your player pool and you need to consider them. I'm with you on the Jokic thing. I'm going very balanced here, trying to get away from these punts if I can. That said, if I'm doing a lot of lineups, absolutely, I'm hammering the over on the 10%. Like, I'm going way over where the field is. I don't believe that's where the field's going to be. It's going to be closer to like 30% still at the end of the day, probably. But I'm still going to try to meet that then and just kind of project that and go like 30%, just so I'm not like at the end of the day, have no Jokic to end the night. That'd be a bummer. All right, that does it for the position by position breakdown. Let's end with our strategy, which I think we already did. Maybe just offer your flag plant for the day.
Yeah, I think I'll flag plant Towns. Just like the savings from Jokic to Towns are huge. Towns doesn't have the 100 fantasy point ceiling, but 70 is doable for him, 60, 70. So I'm not saying he's going to do that, but I think for the dollar, he's like one of the best plays on the slate. I don't really think he'll be that owned just because Jokic attracts attention. There's cheaper stuff at center like Duren being glaringly underpriced. Cade also at another position. So not sure if a lot of the field is going to pay all the way up for Towns, but I plan to do that quite a bit. So I think I would flag plant him on the slate.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with him whatsoever. I kind of like the Leonard versus Harden lean that you're kind of suggesting before too. But the big one for me is going to be Norm Powell. I just think he's too cheap at this point, and the ownership is egregiously low. Like I don't know if I buy that ownership either. That's just why we have to update ownership before we finalize things later in the day. But right now, Norm looks like one of the better values. And then Jalen Duren, I'm just going to bank on him not getting into crazy foul trouble right away. And if he's out there and not in foul trouble, he's going to probably smash. So at 6, he's just also just way too cheap. So he's my favorite center play of the entire slate. When I dished up my core plays earlier today, I did not want to put 2 centers because that locks your lineup. Then you can't do anything else. I would start with Duren at center, and then Zoo, Cat, Jokic. Like you can figure out the rest how you go there. But obviously, it's kind of hard to get away from a Zoo Duren pairing just because they're both just super cheap and project well. All right, that is going to do for us. Hopefully this helps you out. If it does, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out our Patreon, just $5.99 for our core plays for tonight's NBA slate, as well as our MLB DFS pitcher picks and our stacks, including everything else that we have to offer over there. Plus, you get access to our Discord. All right, thanks for watching, and good luck.